Jackie Chan is a goddamn maniac, and I don't think enough people either know or remember that nowadays. For most people, Jackie Chan is that lovable guy that was in those Rush Hour movies with Chris Tucker. Or he's the guy that had his own cartoon when they were a kid. That was pretty cool. Or he's that guy that was supposed to have been in all those kung fu movies they never had any interest in watching. And while all those things are true, that mindset is a horrible disservice to the filmmaker, martial artist, and stuntman that Jackie was and is. Jackie Chan has done shit you won't believe on film and nearly died for it over and over. And I feel like, with me being a big fan of the guy, I should share with you the story and legend of Jackie Chan. Okay, so let's get the origin story out of the way first. Jackie was born into poverty in Hong Kong in 1954 with the name Chan Kong Sang. Early into the 60s, Jackie's family immigrated to Australia, where they were hoping to set up a new life. Unfortunately, young Jackie wasn't performing very well in school, so his father sent him back to China to attend the China Drama Academy. And this is where Jackie discovered where he did his best work. Jackie excelled at both acrobatics and martial arts, and surprisingly singing too. He actually took part in this kind of Chinese opera called Jingxi, which actually looks really cool. It's like this kind of acrobatic musical stage play kind of thing. Anyway, all the schooling and high-flying know-how led Jackie to the career of movie stunt coordinator. So he would set up big set pieces and figure out how fight scenes would be filmed, which seems like a pretty unique job to me and you, no doubt. But back in the 70s, with all the Eastern action movies going around, it was actually a job that was hard to penetrate the market with. So Jackie had to pay the bill somehow. So he managed to get on some Bruce Lee movies as a nameless henchman that would basically get defeated instantly. You probably didn't notice, but I already showed you Jackie's clip from Enter the Dragon. Yeah, there he is. That's all he got. But Jackie really looked up to Bruce, honestly, like we all should. But you can understand Jackie had a unique perspective. Bruce Lee was basically the zenith of what Jackie was trying to do. He was the martial arts star, a household name. There's this story that Jackie tells that once when they were filming a scene, Bruce hit him across the face pretty hard with a stick, but he carried on acting anyway. As soon as the cameras cut though, Bruce rushed over and apologized and asked if he was okay, which is very nice of him, and the way Jackie tells it, it didn't even really hurt that badly. But still, Jackie hammed it up a little bit like it really did hurt, just because he liked the fact that he was talking to Bruce Lee and he was giving him the time of day, which is a very Jackie Chan move in and of itself, funnily enough, but we'll get into that. From then, Bruce knew Jackie's name and they would even chat from time to time, which had a big impact on Jackie. But as we all know, unfortunately, Bruce Lee died at a tragically young age. So suddenly, the role of greatest kung fu movie action star was up for grabs. But Jackie wasn't at the point in his career where he could just jump up and take it. Jackie continued his career, actually gaining starring roles in smaller action movies that were trying to capitalize on the kung fu movie boom of the 1970s. Ones you've probably never even heard of, like Magnificent Bodyguards and Shaolin Wooden Men, which did alright at the Chinese box office, but Jackie finally got his first big break when he starred in Drunken Master, which is definitely one you've heard of, or at least you've heard of the concept of the Drunken Master. Anyway, that movie did very well, a cult classic, which opened even more doors for Jackie. He got to direct his own film called The Young Master, which was fine. It was definitely his first time directing, you can tell. He hadn't quite found what made him incredible yet. But then Jackie got lured into doing some Western films, like the very underwhelming Battle Creek Brawl, which was basically just an attempt to get American eyes on him. But it didn't really work, so Jackie went back to China and back to directing, and this era is why you know the name Jackie Chan. Now, you might think you know Jackie Chan because he's a very talented martial artist, but I'm going to tell you otherwise right now. You know Jackie Chan because he's an extremely talented and ambitious director and filmmaker. Jackie Chan changed the game with his own style. Bruce Lee set the precedent of a successful martial arts film having a stoic, nearly untouchable lead that always got the job done, nearly without breaking a sweat. And while I agree that's cool and all, Jackie saw a different way to do it. Jackie pioneered this ingenious blend of incredible martial arts mixed with comedy and almost slapstick humor at some points. It was a complete departure from Pai Mei effortlessly taking on groups of goons and killing them with a 7 paces palm.
5, 6, 7. Down.
It's funny and cool and real, and honestly, it's really a shame. Nowadays, we're almost numb to action. We see the highest, flyingest, computer-animated action year in and year out. The art of the true, actual set-piece stunt is almost lost, at least on the Hollywood level. Like, you see Jackie Chan hanging from a bus using an umbrella as a hook here, and nowadays you're like, oh, that's a funny idea for an action shot, but it doesn't really click anymore that that's a real guy in real danger doing a real stunt. There's no computer-generated anything here. This is straight up. He could be horribly maimed. Or even in the same movie, Police Story, by the way, it's pretty good, you should watch it. There's this scene right off the bat in the movie where there's this car chase that just completely demolishes this shanty town or whatever. This is just some legit dangerous shit that they fought up, figured they could film it, and pulled it off in one take. And Jackie did this over and over in his movies because he wanted to push himself and the medium. And he didn't just do that with stunts either, but also with fighting. Jackie took the idea of the untouchable martial artist lead, the absurdity of it, and used it, but also used it as a joke. In so many of the scenes Jackie directs, he he's on the back foot. He's fighting with his hands tied behind his back, or he's drunk, or where they're fighting is ridiculous, or it's a 2, 3, 4, 10 versus 1, which is the crucial first step to a successful Jackie Chan fight scene. He's in a losing position, which is great. So when the fight kicks off, Jackie is already impressive for dealing with whatever the disadvantage is. But then he gets to improvising, using his environment, and using things that you would never think you'd see in a fight scene. Just the way he uses the dimensions of objects to fight is insane to watch. But the genius of this, even in line with the incredible action, is the comedy. You never get the idea that Jackie Chan's character has any experience past being a really good martial artist. Yeah, he can fight, but he's never fought with a ladder before. And as the character improvises, he's just as surprised with the shit he thinks of in the moment as the audience is. It's a different mindset. It's not some untouchable master in his element. It's a really quick thinking guy never giving up. And that's the other departure. He could give up. Jackie Chan loves his characters to get the absolute shit kicked out of them. He's not invincible. Hell, he doesn't even seem to have a very high pain tolerance most of the time. Much like his story with Bruce Lee and getting hit with a stick, he kinda hams it up, which easily endears you to the characters. He's this 10th level ninja acrobat, but there he is making a funny face after he fell over or something. And a lot of the time, it isn't just an act either. This is why I said Jackie Chan is a fucking maniac right off the start of the video. Jackie has had some of the gnarliest injuries any actor has ever had. He's had your classic injuries like broken feet and hands, par for the course, but you hear about those kind of things nowadays, and it's an article in the headlines that reads, X movie delayed after X actor breaks bone. Rightfully so, safety should be number one, but Jackie never really saw it this way. Like the time he snapped his ankle in Rumble in the Bronx. He simply got it put in a cast, got the cast all dolled up, and then wore a special shoe over it, and kept filming. By the way, a lot of the injury video I show you will have credits over it. Jackie used to put the injury footage in the credits of his films, which I kind of think is cool. Anyway, like I was saying, a broken ankle? I hear that's one of the worst, most painful bones to break, and he just kept filming. Or how about that time in Police Story 3, where in the helicopter train scene, where he was just straight up hit by a helicopter, and not like, oh, glancing blow. This shit sent him swinging on this pipe he was attached to which he had to brutally hang there before the crew got him down with a horribly torn shoulder and a broken cheekbone. Or the time he got punched in the eye and almost went blind, but he kept filming. Or the time he dislocated his sternum. How do you dislocate your sternum? Like, how do you move that bone out of place without being killed, right? Alright, now I want to talk about his most famous injuries, two of which were basically planned. One is the clock tower fall. In an homage to an old Harold Lloyd movie, you know that famous image of the guy hanging from the hands of a clock? Well, that was filmed with a forced perspective trick, and Harold Lloyd was never actually in any real danger. Jackie decided he was going to do it for real. And not just for real, he was going to do it and take the fall. A 60-foot drop with only 2 cartoonish awnings to break the speed of the fall, which didn't really accomplish that and only served to twist him in the air and have him land on his neck, leaving him with pretty debilitating neck and spine pain for years afterwards. Okay, so this fall is pretty visually fucked. Like, you could tell this shit didn't feel good. But this next famous fall of his seems a little more low-key. Back in Police Story 1 again, Jackie set up this stunt where he would slide down this pole in this mall complex through a bunch of lights, and then have his fall broken by some mall kiosk made out of glass and wood, which doesn't seem as bad as the last one. At least he's got the pole this time. That'll slow him down, right? Nope, wrong. It made it worse, actually. While it slowed him down a little, yes, no one had taken into account that the metal pole had been under hot studio lights all day. So when Jackie jumped out to grab it, it was red hot, meaning he was suddenly in the split-second decision of either let go and endure the sheer drop, or hold on and burn himself horribly. He opted for the latter, and for his trouble, received second-degree burns on most of his hands and forearms. Not to mention the electrocutions he suffered from the lights, as well as the dislocated pelvis from the fall, to which Jackie powered through it all and kept acting for a few seconds afterwards, as you can see here. This guy is inhuman. Oh yeah, and did I mention that he did this with 2 broken vertebrae in his back from a fall from just a few minutes earlier in the movie? Yeah, he did this with a broken back. And the craziest thing about all these falls is, these are Jackie's movies. This isn't someone else's vision taking advantage of some insane lunatic stuntman willing to do anything. These films are directed and stunt choreographed by Jackie Chan himself. These falls are guaranteed injuries he writes himself into. And it's gotten to the point of, I don't think Jackie Chan can be killed by conventional means. And why, you find yourself asking? Why would anyone do that to themselves? And I don't think the answer is simple. Is it just for recognition? To get bigger roles and more money later? No, you never get that vibe. Jackie Chan is still alive today, and he's extremely jovial and humble about his career. So then what? I think he did it because it's his passion. He wanted to push the envelope of filmmaking further than anyone else ever had. He's a perfectionist. You see it in the behind-the-scenes footage of his films. In his fight scenes, you see him grill the people he's fighting, who are great martial artists in their own right, for not fighting so the scene will be perfect. They can fight, but Jackie needs them to fight so the movie excels. He does these amazing long takes that are shot over and over and over with extremely intricate fighting until they're perfect.
When I throw the fan and coming back for one shot, more than 120 tick. Those kind of scene, when you see it in 2 minutes, or 1 second if, oh, Jackie, good. It's not good. You can do it. Except, do you have the patience or not?
So with his perfectionist attitude, it's only natural that he would want the realest and most dangerous stunts ever put to film. And I still believe that's the case. Since Jackie's prime, no one has captured the speed and magnitude of what he did. People might argue that some actors like Tony Jaa have recreated the vibe that Jackie had, but if you think that, I think you have to go back and watch some Jackie Chan films. I want to end this off by quickly talking about a story that I think perfectly encapsulates who Jackie Chan is as a person and a filmmaker. The story of Jackie's worst injury ever. One that almost killed him. In 1987, Jackie was starring and directing in the movie Armor of God, kind of a Kung Fu Indiana Jones type beat. In one scene, Jackie has to do a pretty innocuous stunt. He's got to leap over a wall and hang onto a tree branch to catch himself. That's pretty much nothing for Jackie. That is light work. And the first take goes well, but Jackie wants to do it again, but faster. This time the branch snaps, which sends him falling to the ground, and he hits his head on a rock. He fractures his skull, part of which shoots into his brain, nearly killing him. 4 years later, Armor of God 2 was released. Patron shoutouts if you want to see that Game of Thrones video I made that, God, I'm really trying to get on YouTube, I swear. Plus another wacky, I don't know, who knows what it could be video. You can support me on Patreon for just a few bucks. Link, as always, is in the description below the video. Biggest shoutouts of all go to my top patrons. Agent Rhino, who taught a mountain goat to use rock climbing equipment, and now it's an apex predator. Brendan Murphy, who can tie both of his shoes with one hand in under 10 seconds. Donut, who lost his lucky $5 bill, but found 20% his lucky $1 bill, so it all hashed out to be about even. Dylan Calvo, who played Twister with a giant Pacific octopus and only lost because the damn thing tried to kill him. Eli Yakubowicz, who ordered a sword off of Wish.com and it actually came with an ancient elven enchantment. Kennedy Stapleton, who rode a giraffe into a World War II reenactment and everyone sort of thought it didn't fit the vibe. Omega Fighter, who got a rear view mirror installed on his head so he never has to look over his shoulder. Stephanie Riches, who accidentally summoned and unsummoned a Japanese demon when she was a kid and didn't even notice because it happened so fast. Tiago Nascimento, who breeds anti-wasp killer bees, and I think we can all appreciate that. Varunda, who is the only man to officially win that giant tomato fight they have in Spain every year. And Whitrow, who rolled their ankles so hard it rolled all the way around 360 degrees and it didn't hurt at all. Even more huge shoutouts to my other fuck you money patrons: Danger Stranger, Daniel Ward, Fritz Sullivan, Garrett Kane, Jared Berkman, John, Kevin Hall, Sean Martin, and Thomas Lautenbach. And of course my god overanalyzers: Alex Fritz, Ali QPZM, Andrew Watchett, Austin Gallup, Be My Valentine, Big Thirsty, Braden Shanahan, Brando Espinoza, Cade Stinson, Charles Barnett, Christopher D. Sampson II, Dan Bertel, Dizzy Payne, DJ Jax, Dominic Saint, Doran, Ethan Standel, Glintlock, It's Carton, Jaziel Martinez, Jackson, John Ajaka, Josie Tiffany, Justin Fletchall, KT and Den B, Lord Wingding, Medium D Speaks, Michael Conrad, Mike the Magic Man, Mitchell Gobrecht, Nathan L, Nathan William Sizemore, Nickel Pickle 582, Nicholas Abbott, Papa Jaka, Phil, Philip Conti, Ranga, Reese, Rocket Mist, Ryan Maxwell, Stab Dog, Steinwan, Super Snipper, Vivina Lockfire, William Willett, and the Bareface. Next up, I think there's a recent show I need to be disappointed in publicly.